The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Earth ship Dauntless. Captain John Miller stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the huge space station grow larger as they approached. Today was supposed to be a good day. After years of preparation, humans would finally join the Galactic Council. John checked his uniform one last time. The United Earth government had chosen him to lead the security detail for this historic event. His brown eyes reflected both pride and worry. Humanity was new to space travel compared to the other 30 species in the Council. Many of those aliens had been traveling between stars when humans were still figuring out how to make fire. "Captain, we are cleared to dock," said Lieutenant Kate Simmons from her communications station. Her voice was steady, but John could hear the excitement underneath. "Proceed, Lieutenant, and remind our diplomats that we follow Council protocol exactly. We want to make a good first impression." The docking went smoothly. John led his team of 6 security officers out behind the 5 human diplomats. The welcoming area was filled with creatures of all shapes and sizes. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange John had trouble figuring out which part was their face. A tall blue being with 4 arms approached them. "Welcome, humans, to Central Station. I am Coordinator Zeth. The Council is ready for your presentation." The main council chamber was enormous. Curved rows of seats rose up like in a stadium, filled with representatives from across the galaxy. The human group looked small as they walked to the center of the floor. Lead Ambassador Diane Russell began her speech. John scanned the room, noting the positions of various security personnel. Something felt off. The alien guards seemed tense, and several council members were checking their devices with worried looks. John touched the communicator in his ear. "Dauntless, this is Miller. Run a scan of local space. Something's not right." Before the ship could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The chamber's giant view screen activated, showing space outside the station. Strange ships appeared at the edge of the system. They were dark, with odd angles that hurt the eyes if you looked too long. A deep voice boomed through the chamber. "This is Captain Sam Green from Earth Defense Fleet Support Vessel Guardian. Unknown ships have entered the system and are not responding to hails." The council erupted in panic. John watched in shock as the alien representatives began rushing toward the exits. The council leader, a reptilian being, shouted over the noise, "Emergency evacuation. All ships prepare for immediate departure." "What's happening?" Diane asked a fleeing 4-eyed alien. "The Void Armada," it hissed in fear. "They have found us. We must run." On the view screen, the strange ships opened fire on the station's outer defenses. The station shuddered under the attack. "Captain Miller." Sam's voice came through the communicator. "We need to evacuate our people now." But John saw something that turned his blood cold. In their rush to escape, the alien representatives were ignoring the civilian visitors in the public viewing areas. Families with children were being pushed aside as diplomats rushed to their private ships. "Ambassador Russell," John said firmly, "our people are on the way, but there are civilians being left behind." Diane understood immediately. "Captain, organize an evacuation for those civilians. We'll help however we can." While the representatives of 30 advanced alien species ran to save themselves, the human delegation split up. John led half his team to the public areas, while Diane and the others went to help coordinate with station security. "Earth ships, this is Ambassador Russell. We need emergency evacuation for civilian station visitors. The other species they're just leaving them." As the first explosions rocked the interior of the station, John helped a small alien child find its parent. Around him, his team was guiding frightened civilians toward escape pods. The attack on the Galactic Council was humanity's introduction to interstellar politics. It wasn't the welcome they expected, but it showed something important. When faced with danger, humans didn't run. They helped. That day, while every other species fled, humanity held the line. 3 months had passed since the attack on the Galactic Council station. Earth had changed. Alien ships filled the skies, not as invaders, but as refugees. Every day, more arrived, fleeing from the advancing Void Armada. Admiral Diane Russell, recently promoted after her actions at the Council Station, stood before the United Earth Council in their underground chamber in Geneva. The room was packed with human leaders and several alien representatives. "The situation is worse than we thought," Diane said, pointing to the large star map behind her. Red areas showed systems taken by the Void Armada. Most of the map was red. In just 3 months, they'd conquered nearly a third of known space. An elderly councilman raised his hand. "Admiral, why have these advanced alien species not formed a defense? They have better technology than us by centuries." Diane looked to the side where Zelter, a tall green alien with 6 fingers on each hand, waited. He had been a military commander for the Ventari, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Zelter stepped forward. "Your question is fair. The truth shames us." His voice was deep and tired. "We have not fought a real war in over 2,000 years. We forgot how." Murmurs filled the room as Zelter continued. "We grew comfortable with our technology. When the Void Armada appeared with weapons we had never seen, we had no answer. Our leaders chose to run rather than fight a battle they could not calculate how to win." Flight Lieutenant Paul Garcia entered the chamber, carrying data tablets. He had been analyzing the reports from fallen systems. Paul was young, just 30, but his mind for strategy had earned him a place on Earth's defense planning team. "With respect, sir," Paul said to Zelter, "I think there's more to it than just better weapons." Paul activated his own display, showing battle footage from various encounters with the Void Armada. "Look here," he said, pointing to attack patterns. "The Armada is powerful, yes, but they follow patterns, rigid ones. And here, when the Centauri ships tried a different approach, they actually caused damage before being overwhelmed." Paul looked around the room. "The Void Armada has never faced an enemy that adapts. They've never fought humans." A silence fell over the room. Diane nodded slowly. "Lieutenant Garcia has identified something important. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to adapt, to find new ways when old ones fail." She turned to the council. "While our alien friends have better ships and weapons, we have something they've lost. The spirit of resistance, the refusal to accept defeat." One of the alien representatives, a blue-skinned female named Kira, spoke up. "Admiral Russell, you cannot be suggesting fighting. My people, the Azuri, lost our homeworld in a single day despite defenses we built over centuries." Diane looked at her with sympathy. "And yet here you are, still alive, still free. That's how resistance begins." She turned back to the star map. "We don't need to win every battle. We just need to show that the Void Armada can be hurt, can be slowed down." Paul stepped forward again. "Our analysts think they're about 6 months from reaching Earth at their current pace. That's 6 months to prepare, to learn, to plan." The head of the Earth Council, President Greg Foster, stood up. His face was grim but determined. "The people of Earth have voted. We will not run and hide like the others. If Earth is to be the line in the sand, then so be it." He looked at the alien representatives. "You are welcome to stay under our protection. All we ask is your knowledge to help us prepare." Zelter and several other aliens looked at each other in disbelief. Kira spoke again, her voice soft. "You would fight for us, even though we abandoned your people at the Council Station." Diane smiled slightly. "That's what humans do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves." As the meeting ended, Paul walked with Diane through the halls of the complex. "Do you really think we have a chance, Admiral?" Diane looked out a window at the refugee ships above. "I don't know. But I do know this. If humanity is going to go down, we're going down fighting." The orbital shipyards above Earth buzzed with activity day and night. Chief Engineer Olivia Martinez hadn't slept more than 4 hours at a time in weeks. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail as she studied the plans on her tablet. Around her, workers welded huge metal plates onto the frame of what would become the battleship Defiance. "Chief, the Ventari engineers are here about the shield integration," said her assistant, pointing to a group of tall green aliens waiting nearby. Olivia nodded and walked over to them. The aliens towered over her, but they treated her with great respect. They had been amazed at how quickly humans adapted their advanced shield technology to Earth ships. "We've modified the power systems like you suggested," she told them. "Should increase shield strength by 30%. The lead Ventari engineer looked impressed. "It took our people 50 years to develop that improvement. You did it in 2 months." Olivia shrugged. "We don't have 50 years. We barely have 4 months now before the Void Armada reaches our outer colonies." On the other side of the shipyard complex, Strategic Commander Eric Woods met with his planning team. The room was filled with maps and tactical displays. Both humans and aliens worked together, plotting defense strategies. "Operation Firewall," Eric said, pointing to the main screen. "Instead of waiting for them to reach us, we hit their supply lines here, and here." He marked spots on the map showing the Armada's projected path toward Earth. A human officer raised his hand. "Sir, even our fastest ships would be outmatched if the main Armada catches them." "That's why we don't let them catch us," Eric replied. "Small squadrons, hit and run attacks. We're not trying to win battles yet. Just slow them down and learn their tactics." An alien advisor from the Kozak species, a race known for their tactical minds before they too had fled the Armada, spoke up. "This is very risky. The Void ships are faster and more powerful. But they're predictable," Eric countered. "Lieutenant Garcia's analysis shows they always follow the same attack patterns. We can use that against them." Meanwhile, in the diplomatic wing of Earth's government center, Ambassador Laura Chen met with representatives from 12 different alien species. Unlike the military meetings, this one was tense. "We need your technical knowledge," Laura said firmly. "We're offering you sanctuary. In return, help us defend not just Earth, but all our worlds." A small bird-like alien chittered angrily. "My people gave you our shield designs already. What more do you want? Our world burned despite our technology." Laura kept her voice calm. "Because you tried to fight them alone. We're proposing something different, combining our strategies with your technology." A blue-skinned Azuri female named Kira, who had been quiet until now, stood up. "The humans saved many of my people when they could have just saved themselves. I will share our weapons systems with them." One by one, other aliens joined her. Not all, but enough. Laura felt a small spark of hope for the first time in weeks. That evening, Captain Sean Wilson received his orders. He would lead the first strike team for Operation Firewall. His squadron of 8 ships, 6 human and 2 alien volunteers, would target a Void Armada supply convoy near Alpha Centauri. Sean looked at the faces of his pilots during the briefing. Some showed fear, others determination. A female pilot raised her hand. "Captain, what are our chances of all coming back?" Sean didn't lie to his people. "Not good. But every day we buy gives Earth time to prepare. And maybe, just maybe, we show these void creatures that humans don't go down easy." As the pilots prepared their ships, news came in that the Void Armada had increased speed. They would reach Alpha Centauri in just 3 days. On Earth, people looked to the night sky, wondering if they would be the first species to stop the unstoppable enemy. Humanity had always been fighters, survivors. Now they would need to be both. Captain Sean Wilson felt his heart race as the jump countdown reached 0. His fighter squadron emerged from hyperspace near Alpha Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. 8 ships in total, 6 human vessels, and 2 piloted by alien volunteers who had decided to fight alongside humanity. "All ships report," Sean ordered, his voice steady despite his nerves. One by one, his pilots checked in. The last was Krell, a reptilian Drakkar whose people had lost 3 worlds to the Void Armada. "Sensors active, Captain," said Lieutenant Amy Porter, his second in command. "Detecting Void Armada supply ships at the edge of the asteroid belt, just as our intel suggested." Scene studied the tactical display. 5 large void supply ships and 7 escort fighters moved slowly through the system. This was humanity's first real chance to test the enemy's capabilities. "Remember the plan," Scene told his team. "We hit them fast, test their defenses, and get out. Don't try to be heroes today." The human ships had been upgraded with alien technology, but they were still outmatched by the void vessels. Their only advantages were surprise and unpredictability. "Attack pattern Delta," Scene ordered. "Let's see how they respond." The 8 fighter ships split into pairs and approached from different angles. The void escorts detected them when they were halfway to their target and immediately formed a defensive pattern around the supply ships. "They're reacting exactly as Lieutenant Garcia predicted," Amy noted with surprise. "Completely by the book." Scene watched as the void fighters moved into the same formation they had used in every recorded encounter with other species. It was as if they were following a script. "Now," Scene ordered. Instead of attacking head-on as the void ships expected, the human squadron suddenly changed course, diving beneath the plane of defense. The void ships tried to adjust but seemed slow to react to the unexpected maneuver. Scene's fighter targeted the closest supply ship and fired the new weapons designed by the combined human-alien engineering teams. The energy blast struck home, creating a visible crack in the supply ship's hull. For a moment, everyone was silent in shock. They had actually damaged a void vessel. "All ships, target that same spot," Scene commanded. The squadron made another pass, all focusing fire on the damaged area. The supply ship's hull ruptured, causing a chain reaction that tore it apart. "We got one," Amy shouted, before quickly regaining her composure. "Void fighters are regrouping. They're changing their attack pattern." Scene studied the new formation. "They're adapting. Everyone pull back to point beta. Don't get greedy." Most of the squadron acknowledged, but one of the human pilots, Jack Reed, pushed his attack on a second supply ship. 2 void fighters immediately targeted him. "Reed, break off now," Scene ordered. Too late. Reed's ship took a direct hit, but instead of exploding, it spun away, severely damaged. Krell, the alien volunteer, broke formation. "I will get him," the reptilian declared, diving his ship toward the stranded human. Scene made a split-second decision. "Porter, Mason, give Krell cover. Everyone else, continue withdrawal." What followed was 5 minutes of the most intense flying Scene had ever done. Somehow, Krell reached Reed's ship and used a tractor beam to tow it away while the others provided covering fire. When they finally jumped back to the emergency rendezvous point, Scene could hardly believe it. They had destroyed one void ship, damaged another, and hadn't lost a single pilot. Back at Earth Command, Intelligence Officer Nicole Johnson analyzed the data from the battle. She played the footage over and over, focusing on the void ship's reactions. "There's something odd about these ships," she told Admiral Russell. "Their movements are too regular, too predictable." She highlighted sections of the video. "Look here, when our ships did something unexpected, there was a delay before they responded. Almost like." Admiral Russell leaned forward. "Like what?" Nicole looked up, her eyes wide with realization. "Like they're automated or remotely controlled. Admiral, I don't think there are any living beings on those ships." The news spread quickly. Humanity hadn't just survived their first encounter with the Void Armada. They had discovered a potential weakness. For the first time since the invasion began, a spark of real hope flickered to life across the galaxy. 6 months after the first battle at Alpha Centauri, Earth had changed beyond recognition. The orbital shipyards now stretched across the sky like shining webs. Ships from 20 different alien species flew alongside human vessels. What had begun as a desperate last stand was turning into something unexpected. A real resistance. Chief Diplomat Frank Navarro worked tirelessly to keep the fragile alliance together. Today he sat at a large round table with representatives from 12 alien species who had committed their remaining forces to fight alongside humans. "The Drakkar fleet will patrol the outer system," said Krell, now promoted to commander after his bravery at Alpha Centauri. Our ships are fastest at long-range detection. A blue-skinned Azuri female named Kira nodded in agreement. The Azuri will handle communications. Our technology can break through void jamming signals. Frank watched with quiet pride. 6 months ago, these species had been ready to abandon Earth just as they had abandoned their own worlds. Now they worked together with purpose and determination. Not everything was going smoothly, though. An argument broke out between the Ventari and Kozak representatives about defense strategies. Enough, Frank said firmly. We cannot afford to fight among ourselves when the real enemy draws closer every day. Both aliens fell silent, reminded of what was at stake. In a large laboratory beneath Geneva, Dr. Helen Carter led a team of scientists studying captured void technology. The room was filled with parts salvaged from destroyed enemy ships. Humans worked side by side with alien scientists, combining their knowledge. Helen held up a small black device that seemed to swallow light around it. This is it. This is their quantum communication system. Her assistant, a young scientist named Joe Winters, looked skeptical. You're sure? Watch, Helen said. She activated a device next to it, and the black object pulsed with strange energy. It's how all void ships communicate with each other and receive commands. If we can disrupt this signal, we could isolate them from their control network. Joe finished, eyes widening with realization. Helen nodded excitedly. Exactly. We need to build a quantum disruptor that targets their specific frequency. Meanwhile, on the bridge of Earth's largest battleship, the Defiance, Lieutenant General Ryan Baker reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The main view screen showed the position of void forces across the galaxy. They're changing course, Ryan noted, pointing to the large red mass representing the main void armada. Instead of continuing to spread out, they're consolidating. Admiral Russell studied the screen with concern. They're adapting to our tactics. All those hit-and-run missions have gotten their attention. The tactical officer spoke up. New data coming in, sir. The main armada appears to be on a direct course for Earth. Estimated arrival time: 3 weeks. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. For months, human and allied ships had been harassing the Void Armada, destroying supply ships and scout vessels. They had delayed the enemy advance, but now the full force was coming straight for them. How many ships? Ryan asked quietly. Current count stands at over 3,000 vessels. We have less than 300, even counting all allied ships. Admiral Russell's face remained calm, though her eyes revealed her concern. Inform all commands. Begin final preparations for Earth's defense. As Ryan left to carry out the orders, he passed a viewport and paused to look at Earth below. Beautiful blue oceans, swirling white clouds, green and brown landmasses. Home. The planet that had given birth to a species stubborn enough to fight when everyone else had given up. The largest battle in galactic history was coming, and the odds were terrible. But as Ryan watched alien and human crews working together on the deck below, he felt something unexpected. Pride. Whatever happened next, humanity had already achieved something remarkable. They had taught the stars that running wasn't the only option when faced with seemingly impossible odds. Ryan straightened his uniform and continued on his way. There was much to do before the enemy arrived. Earth would be ready. Humanity would hold the line. The Void Armada arrived at the edge of the solar system with terrifying speed. The first defensive line near Pluto fell within hours. Lissa Grant watched from her communication station on Earth Command as the reports came in. Pluto Station has gone silent, she reported, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her chest. Neptune Defense Grid reports massive enemy forces approaching. Admiral Russell stood before the giant tactical display, her face illuminated by the red dots representing enemy ships. They outnumbered the blue Allied dots by more than 10-1. Order Neptune Station to hold as long as possible. Then fall back to Uranus, she commanded. They need to buy us time. Time was what they needed most. Dr. Helen Carter and her team were still finalizing the quantum disruptor that might be their only hope against the overwhelming void forces. On the command deck of Neptune Station, Commander Will Foster knew they wouldn't survive the day. The station shook as another barrage of enemy fire struck their failing shields. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel," Will ordered. "Defense teams, stay at your posts." A young officer looked at him with wide eyes. "Sir, the void ships. There are hundreds of them." Will placed a hand on the officer's shoulder. "I know, son, but every minute we hold them here is another minute for Earth to prepare." The battle for Neptune was brief but fierce. The human and alien defenders fought with everything they had, destroying several void ships before the station's main reactor was hit. As the station began to break apart, the last evacuation ships jumped away, carrying the survivors toward Earth. On Mars, Colonel Jason Murphy coordinated the evacuation of civilian populations. The Red Planet had become home to millions of refugees, both human and alien. Now they all needed to reach Earth before the Void Armada arrived. "Keep the transports moving," Jason ordered as another group of civilian ships took off. "We have less than 48 hours before they reach Mars orbit." A Ventari aide approached him. "Colonel, our sensors detect the first void ships entering the asteroid belt. They will be here sooner than expected." Jason looked at the status board showing thousands of civilians still waiting for transport. "Then we need to prepare to fight. Get every able pilot to a fighter. We'll give these people their chance to escape." Back on Earth, Dr. Helen Carter worked frantically in her lab. Components and tools were scattered across every surface as she and her team assembled the quantum disruptor. "Will it work?" asked Admiral Russell, who had come down from command to see their progress. Helen didn't look up from her work. "In theory, yes. It should disrupt the connection between the void ships and whatever is controlling them. But someone will need to get very close to their command ship to deploy it." "How close?" the Admiral asked. Helen finally looked up, her face grave. "Point-blank range. Basically, they'll need to crash into it." Admiral Russell closed her eyes briefly. "A suicide mission?" "I'm afraid so," Helen confirmed. Word spread quickly that they needed volunteers for a mission that no one was expected to survive. Major Samantha Lee was the first to step forward. A pilot who had flown in the first battle at Alpha Centauri. She had lost her brother when the Void Armada destroyed a civilian transport fleeing Mars. "I'll do it," she told Admiral Russell. "Just give me a fast ship and a good team." Others joined her, a mixed group of humans and aliens united by their determination to stop the enemy that had taken so much from all of them. On Mars, the battle began. Human and alien fighters rose to meet the first wave of void ships entering the planet's orbit. Colonel Murphy led the defense from his command ship, buying time for the last civilians to escape. Earth watched as Mars fell after 3 days of brutal fighting. Colonel Murphy and his forces managed to evacuate 80% of the civilians before the planet was overrun. His last message was simple: "Earth stands alone now. Make it count." As the survivors from Mars reached Earth, the final preparations for the planet's defense began. Earth now truly was the last line. There was nowhere left to run. The day of the final battle arrived. Earth's combined fleet formed a defensive sphere around the planet. Nearly 300 ships, human vessels alongside those of 20 alien species who had chosen to make their stand with humanity. Admiral Russell addressed all ships from the bridge of the Defiance. Her voice was calm and steady as it reached every fighter, every battleship, every station. "This is where we hold the line. Not just for Earth, but for every world that couldn't. Remember, we are not fighting for glory. We are fighting for the right of all life to exist free from fear. Good luck. And Godspeed." On the main view screen, the Void Armada appeared like a dark cloud at the edge of lunar orbit. Their ships were massive, some larger than small moons. The sight was enough to make even the bravest heart falter. Captain John Miller, who had witnessed the first attack on the Galactic Council months ago, commanded a battleship on the front line. He watched the enemy approach with a strange calm. "Weapons ready," "Shields at maximum," he ordered. "Remember your training. These machines may be powerful, but they can be hurt." The battle began with a flash of light as thousands of void weapons fired simultaneously. The human-alien fleet answered in kind, and space itself seemed to burn between the two forces. Major Samantha Lee and her team prepared for their mission in a small hangar bay. Their ship was a captured Void scout vessel that Dr. Carter's team had modified. It would be able to approach the massive Void command ship without triggering immediate defenses. Sam checked the quantum disruptor one final time. The device was about the size of a small car, full of alien and human technology working together in ways neither could have achieved alone. "Once we activate this," she told her mixed human and alien crew, "we'll have about 30 seconds before it detonates. Not much time to get away." No one mentioned the obvious. They weren't expected to get away at all. A Drakkar named Razik, tough and scarred from many battles, nodded solemnly. "It has been an honor to fight alongside humans. Your species taught mine to find courage again." The battle above grew more intense. Despite being outnumbered, the Alliance fought with unexpected effectiveness. Human tactical innovations combined with alien technology created unpredictable attack patterns that confused the rigid Void defense algorithms. Yet for every Void ship destroyed, another took its place. Alliance vessels began to fall. On Earth below, civilians watched the battle through telescopes and video feeds. Families held each other close, knowing everything depended on what happened next. Sam's team launched their ship into the chaos of battle. Using the confusion as cover, they navigated through the fighting toward the center of the Void formation, where the massive command ship directed the attack. "Stay low and quiet," Sam ordered as they approached. "Let them think we're one of theirs." The plan worked better than they dared hope. They'd reached the enormous Void command ship without being challenged. Up close, it was even more terrifying. A dark mountain of alien metal that seemed to absorb light around it. "Taking us in," said the pilot, a human named Ben Rogers, "aiming for what we think is their control center." Inside the ship, Dr. Helen Carter watched their progress from Earth Command. "They're almost there," she whispered. "Just a little closer." The Void ship finally detected the intruder when they were less than a kilometer away. Defensive weapons turned toward Sam's small vessel. "Now or never," Sam said. She hit the activation switch for the quantum disruptor. Full speed ahead. Ben pushed the engines beyond safety limits. Their small ship accelerated directly toward the heart of the Void command vessel. On the command bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Russell watched as the small ship disappeared into the side of the massive enemy vessel. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. The battle continued to rage around them. Alliance ships continued to fall. Then a strange pulse of energy rippled outward from the command ship. It wasn't an explosion, but something stranger, like a wave of distortion spreading through space. Across the battlefield, Void ships began to falter. Some drifted aimlessly. Others stopped firing. The massive command ship itself seemed to shudder. "What's happening?" asked a bridge officer. Admiral Russell's eyes widened in realization. It worked. The quantum disruptor worked. 1 year after the Battle of Earth, Captain John Miller stood in the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers. The room was filled with representatives from over 50 species, many of which had returned from hiding after the Void Armada was defeated. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating the new symbol of the Council, a shield with Earth at its center. "Captain Miller," said the new council leader, a tall Ventari named Zelter, "please step forward to address the assembly." John walked to the center of the chamber, remembering the day long ago when he had first stood here as a security officer for Earth's diplomatic team. So much had changed since then. "The investigation is complete," John announced to the gathered representatives. "We now understand what the Void Armada truly was." He activated a holographic display showing the internal workings of a Void ship. They were automated defense systems created thousands of years ago by a species called the Ancients. When that species vanished, the system malfunctioned and began seeing all organic life as a threat. Murmurs spread through the chamber as John continued. For centuries, these machines hunted across the galaxy. When species ran and hid, the machines simply moved on to the next target. No one ever stood and fought long enough to discover their weakness. John looked around the room, meeting the eyes of both alien and human representatives, until Earth. The council chambers erupted in applause. Even species that had once looked down on humans as primitive now showed respect. In orbit above, workers dismantled the last of the deactivated void ships. After the command ship was disrupted, every void vessel throughout the galaxy had shut down. The war had ended in a single moment. Dr. Helen Carter supervised the salvage operation from a nearby station. Her team had made remarkable discoveries about the ancient technology. Careful with that component, she instructed a worker. We still don't fully understand how it works. Beside her stood Joe Winters, now her husband. It's hard to believe they were just machines. They seemed so unstoppable. Helen nodded. The most advanced AI ever created, programmed to protect life but corrupted over time. A warning for all of us about the dangers of technology without oversight. Across the rebuilt Earth cities, alien visitors walked freely among humans. Where once refugees had huddled in camps, now allies and friends shared knowledge and culture. Schools taught children about all the different species in the galaxy. Restaurants served foods from a dozen worlds. In a park in Geneva, Admiral Diane Russell sat on a bench watching children play. Some were human, others had scales or blue skin or extra limbs. They played together without concern for their differences. A memorial stood nearby, listing the names of all who had sacrificed themselves in the Battle of Earth. Major Samantha Lee's name was at the top. No bodies had ever been recovered from the Void command ship, but her legacy lived on in the peace she had helped create. Frank Navarro, now Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, joined Diane on the bench. The Azuri have agreed to share their medical technology. Cancer will be curable within a year. Diane smiled. Another benefit of standing together instead of running apart. On the rebuilt Galactic Council station, Captain John Miller finished his address. The Void Armada is gone, but the lesson remains. When faced with extinction, the answer is not to flee but to stand together. Every species has something valuable to contribute. Technology, art, perspective, courage. John looked out at the gathered representatives. Humanity was not the strongest, smartest, or most advanced species in the galaxy, but we refused to accept defeat. And in doing so, we reminded the galaxy of something important, that some things are worth fighting for, even against impossible odds. As the council session ended, ships from dozens of worlds prepared to return home. Many would carry pieces of Earth culture with them. Music, art, food, ideas. Across the stars, humanity's legacy would spread. When every other species fled, humanity held the line. And because of that single act of courage, life throughout the galaxy could now look to the future without fear.